supersonic passenger plane accelerated down the runway 26 right for takeoff. The aircraft lifted off the runway with flames hanging on its left wing.
Ah.
25 July 2000. Charles de Gaulle Airport, France. A Concorde operated by Air France was on its international charter flight to John F. Kennedy International Airport, New York, United States. The flight was chartered by German company named Delman Cruises. The passengers would fly to New York, then board the cruise ship named MS Deutschland for their 16 days cruise to Ecuador. On board the flight were 100 passengers and 9 crew members. While the aircraft was boarding, the crew contacted ATC and requested the whole length of runway 26 right for takeoff. The boarding was completed. ATC gave startup clearance and confirmed runway 26 right for takeoff. The ground controller then cleared the aircraft to taxi. The captain, named Christian Marty, 54 years old, had been with Air France since 1967 with the experience of 13,477 flight hours, including 317 hours on the Concorde. The first officer, named Jean Marcotte, 50. He had been with Air France since 1971 and had an experience of 10,035 flight hours, with 2,698 hours spent on the Concorde. The third member of cockpit was flight engineer Gilles Jardinot, 58, and had been with Air France since 1968. He had an experience of 12,532 flight hours, of which 937 hours were on the Concorde. The aircraft operating was Concorde. It had its maiden flight on 31 January 1975. Then the aircraft was purchased by Air France on 6 January 1976. The aircraft's last scheduled repair took place on 21 July 2000, which was 4 days before the accident. There was no problems reported during the repair. The aircraft had flown about 11,989 hours in 4,873 flight cycles. The wind was light and variable. ATC reported the wind as 8 knots tailwind as they lined up on runway 26 right. The flight was already delayed, so the crew chose to take off with the tailwind, instead taxiing to the other end of the runway. 2 aircrafts were ahead of Concorde, a DC-10 operated by Continental Airlines and a Boeing 747 operated by Air France. Both of the aircrafts took off from runway 26 right. It was required to inspect the runway before the Concorde's takeoff, but it did not happen on that day. ATC cleared Flight 4590 to take off with the current wind information. The captain applied the takeoff thrust. The tire number 2 on the left main landing gear was destroyed. The large piece of rubber separated from the tire and hit underside of the left wing. The fire broke out under the left wing. At the same time, engine number 1 and 2 suffered a loss of thrust. These all happened within a second. The aircraft reached the point from where they cannot abort their takeoff. The captain pulled the control wheel and the aircraft took off with fire hanging on its left wing. When the controller saw the flames behind the aircraft, he instantly informed the crew about that. The crew pulled the handle of engine number 2 and the fire alarm stopped. Without the power of 2 engines, the airspeed started to drop rapidly. The crew tried to retract the landing gear, but it did not work. The first officer informed ATC that they were trying Le Bourget Aerodrome, which was just in a distance of few kilometers. The crew reduced the power on engine number 3 and 4 to level the aircraft. It caused the airspeed to drop. They lost control and the aircraft stalled. The aircraft crashed under the hotel and was immediately engulfed in fire. This killed all 109 people on the plane and 4 on the ground. The official investigation was conducted by Bureau of Inquiry and Analysis for Civil Aviation Safety, France. According to the investigators, the aircraft was overloaded by 810 kg above the maximum safe takeoff weight. Any effect on takeoff performance from this excess weight was negligible. After reaching takeoff speed, the tire of the number 2 wheel was caught by a metal strip lying on the runway. The metal strip had fallen from the thrust reverser cowl door of the number 3 engine of a Continental Airlines DC-10, which had taken off from the same runway 5 minutes before Concorde. The aircraft was airworthy and the crew were qualified. The landing gear that later failed to retract had not shown serious problems in the past. Despite the crew being trained and certified, no plan existed for the simultaneous failure of 2 engines on the runway, as it was considered highly unlikely. Aborting the takeoff would have led to a high-speed runway excursion and collapse of the landing gear, which also would have caused the aircraft to crash. While two of the engines had problems and one of them was shut down, the damage to the plane's structure was so severe that the crash would have been inevitable even with the engines operating normally. After the crash, Concorde grounded its entire commercial fleet. The company spent millions improving the design of the aircraft, which included installing burst-proof tires and Kevlar-lined fuel tanks. Even the Concorde had been considered among the world's safest airplanes. This crash severely damaged its reputation. Sadly, Concorde stopped flying in 2003. This is all for now. Hit that subscribe button if you want to watch similar videos in the future. Give a thumbs up if you are watching until now. Follow us on Twitter for more updates. I'll see you in the next video. This is Sunil saying thank you for watching. Stay safe and healthy